I'm John Wilson. Welcome to Owned and Operated. Twice a week, we talk about home service businesses, and if you're a home service entrepreneur, then this is going to be the show for you. We talk about our own business in residential plumbing, HVAC, and electric, and we also talk about business models that we just find interesting. Let's get into it. Booking every lead that we get has become hugely important. So when we pay all that money and we do all that work to get that phone to ring, we want to make sure that we're booking all of them. We've looked for a lot of different solutions and we ended up landing on Avoca. So Avoca has been hugely impactful in our business. We launched in late March, early April, and we've already seen an increase in booking rates, which we're really excited about. So what Avoca does is they have a coaching program that listens to all of your calls and basically helps point out the areas that your call center can improve on those calls. It's active coaching every single day. And it listens to every single call, which is one of the biggest pain points that we've had in our call centers. Whenever we're grading calls, it's manual. You can only listen to one or two at a time. Now we can review 400 phone calls a day easily, and we can coach on them quickly. So the impact has been huge, and we've been really grateful for Tyson and his team over at Avoca for helping us get our call center in order. He gave us a special code, so if you check out the link below for Avoca and you use the promo code OWNED, O-W-N-E-D, you'll get special pricing since you got it from us. So check it out, the link below.
Welcome back to Owned and Operated with your hosts, Jack Carr and John Wilson. What's going on, John?
Dude, wrapping up 2 weeks up in Michigan with the family, so that was a bunch of fun. So we spent like the first week with my family in like the middle of Michigan, which is right next to Ann Arbor. And then we spent the second week, which we're wrapping up now, in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. So you're getting me in my full, like, unshowered, I'm going to go for a run after this glory. It's good.
There you go. That's fun. That's a good time away. How are you able to take time away in the middle of summer? What's the deal there?
It's actually easier to take time away in the summer than it is the winter. Mm-hmm. Like, because in the summer, like, no one needs pushed. Like, the weather's pushing us. But in the winter, when when someone needs to be putting the foot on the gas, I find it more difficult to take time. But in the summer, I tend to find it easier.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think as you're really small, and you're really ingrained in the business and all the hats, it's very hard. But as you grow, I can definitely see that ability, because I took a week off actually too, for some other things, and it went smooth, very smooth. I was incredibly surprised when I got back. Like, besides that, one of our trucks got hit. We got in a little small accident, little fender bender. Not our fault, but we got that. That was the biggest red flag. It was pretty awesome.
Yeah. I think the bigger you get, people just sort of do their jobs. It only becomes a challenge when the business needs a big push, or you're going through a big push. But if we're in, April or September and it's a shoulder season for HVAC and we're trying to drive hard and fast to keep leads on the board and we're, struggling with it, then it takes a lot more of a lift from me. But everyone just sort of executing in July, that's not complicated.
Yeah, it's almost hard for them not to execute because there's so much going on and it's so much easy money, in the sense things are legitimately breaking. So there's it's a lot less offerings, more straightforward. There's more opportunities if you do botch one or two. Whereas in the fall, you need to be on point because everything is a key. So that makes a lot of sense, actually. That's neat that you put it that way, because I'm starting to feel that move and that lift towards that kind of feeling. But how's
Yeah.
everything else been going in the business? I mean, you've been away, but I'm sure you've been keeping an eye on it.
Good.
It's been getting a little cooler.
Yeah, good. It's a little cooler this week, so HVAC honestly basically just caught up because
Yeah.
we entered the week sold out. So we're doing okay. We're still pacing for a record month, but this week was down, which was a little bit of a bummer. Mainly from just HVAC sales. But next week's supposed to be pretty hot again, and then we're planning our big shoulder season promos and figuring out how to resolve our shoulder season. So that's like our big current project is how do we attack August and September with like full force.
Do you feel that you'll see the shoulder season in August this year? Because technically, we generally get our hottest month in August.
We usually see it in September, but what we're trying to do,
Yeah.
like the bigger HVAC has become a part of our business, like the more we feel the swings. So like HVAC being down will be a $400,000 or $500,000 a month swing for us in September. So what we're trying to do now is as aggressively as we can prepare for that. So that's like working with our wholesalers to make sure that we have like, hey, can I get a period of time discount or additional rebate basically per piece of equipment that I sell so that I can be more competitive on pricing? Can I get extra rebate on my financing so I can come up with a better financing promo to offer for the September shoulder season? Because October, I know this is kind of odd, but I think we're up north, so just like we do still have a lot of heating only houses and we service a lot of boiler homes, but October is typically our peak month, not July, which is very unusual for most companies in our industry. It's usually July. So we really only have to worry about September and like thriving in September. So yeah, it's a big project of ours. We're really trying to do it well. So strategically scheduling memberships, how we're thinking
Yeah.
about promos, how we're working with our wholesalers so that, yeah, we have to give a little bit, they're going to give a little bit too, so it's less painful. So it's pretty collaborative. We're hoping that like most of our like design and copy stuff is due in the next 7 days for TV, radio, postcards. And then it's going to start blasting early August through September. And we think that's going to carry us through. So that'll be like the BOGO, like the buy an air conditioner, get a free furnace. That type of program is what we'll be running.
Interesting. Yeah, we
But
should circle back.
Most of my brain is, most of my brain right now is like trying to live in whatever the next difficult period's going to be so we can
Yeah.
solve it before we get there.
Yeah, we should definitely circle back on this. I mean, I think this could be an entire episode in itself because, this is huge for us. We have a bunch of plans as well. We're ramping up in certain areas and de-ramping in others that we know we probably shouldn't have this much money in. So very interesting stuff. I think that's a big question for a lot of HVAC companies out there too. It's like, I don't know any single one besides like 2 people who don't do this in summer and then fall and then winter. There's like two of you guys who have managed to like really line that out up and to the right. So it's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing to see. It's a beautiful thing to feel when the time actually comes to fruition.
Well,
and you're
I
not
think
struggling
when
in that
you,
season.
and when you, the other person is Rich Jordan for the listener, but I think when you start I think it's stuff like doing exactly what I said. Like, how do we plan? Like we we grew in quarter one. We've talked a lot about that. I'm like, whoa, we had a crazy quarter one. We actually did more revenue in quarter one than we did in quarter four. That's never happened to me before. Like my revenue in February was higher than my revenue in July of 23. That's insane. Like that's never happened.
Truly.
What we didn't talk about was the 7 months of preparation that we put into that, so that would happen. We didn't talk about the wholesale discounts and programs that we set up. We didn't talk about our strategic membership scheduling. We didn't talk about the
Mm-hmm.
SDRs. We probably touched on it, but like that took 7 months. So like this September, the reason we're probably going to win when most people like you just said don't is I'm concerned about December. Like I was negotiating these deals in June for September.
Yeah.
So we're living, 30 days or 90 days out, and that's how we're going to win.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's the only way to really get there, to get ahead of the ball. So I actually reached out to my rep today to talk about that exact thing. So I'm 60 days out, not 90, but same idea. As because if you can survive the shoulder season, HVAC's an easy business.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're just running winter and summer all year round, I mean, it really is not that difficult to win. But not everybody has that luxury. We all don't live in Arizona, Las Vegas, or Central Florida. So we have to compete. We have to be ready for it.
We have to plan. Yeah.
And you have to plan, which is awesome. Yeah, man, that's great. That sounds like really good that you guys are doing well. You're able to get away. July has been a wonderful month. So for us, it's been interesting. We are like, we talk about this a lot, but like the culling of the business, that when I bought that plumbing company, we had to cut a decent portion of the remodel work, right? And so we are just coming out of that. We bought that business in March. We cut it in April or May.
Yeah.
And now it's June, July, and we're just getting our feet under us and kind of coming around that curve. So we've hired some ex-Hoffman employees. Hey, yo. Great Nexstar training. They got, they're very, very good salespeople, and they understand the focus on service, whereas before the old employees really, we've been trying to meld them and train them into that kind of service sales mentality, and it's been difficult, honestly. And so now we have that model is actually, we have the people in the right places, and we're starting to just see like, hey, we're selling tankless today, a tank tomorrow, boom, repipe the next day. Like it's starting to the ball is starting to roll. It feels good. Feels really good. And then HVAC's HVAC
That's
in
awesome.
summer, man. You can't lose HVAC in summer.
Yeah, HVAC is funny. We have to manage HVAC advertising more than the other trades. Like our LSAs for HVAC almost are never on, because if we turn them on, we'll drown. So we just turned them on, I think for the first time this year, yesterday, just to sort of like assist a little bit. But then I really don't even know that we'll need them on as of next week, because it's going to get hot again, and then we're going to turn around and we have to do 2,000 heating tune-ups, or 2,700. So it does sort of like, HVAC's weird. Whereas like if you have enough memberships, you really don't ever. I can understand how advertising turns off for HVAC, like lead type advertising.
Yeah, we actually culled an entire GMB worth of it because we have two. Actually, I don't know if I want to talk about this, but there's definitely some strategy, and HVAC eats up the entire budget. Let's just say that of any kind of multi-faceted budgeting you're doing. If you do plumbing and HVAC together, in the middle of summer, HVAC will just eat that entire budget, and you'll get like one call for plumbing. So you have to be very cognizant of that going into it. Otherwise, you learn like me the hard way that.
Yeah.
But in the same
we learned
same
that
thread,
one
like
a couple years ago.
Yeah, in the same thread though, like having the plumbing maintenances has been absolutely game changing, right? In the same way that you're talking about shoulder season, we've essentially created a shoulder season for ourselves in plumbing, kind of in this interim. And hey, throwing in plumbing maintenances has absolutely saved our ass. So we're really happy about that.
Yeah, I think we're going to end up adding in drain to our maintenance. We've been talking about it for a few months, but we've been struggling to get our more drain guys onto the team. We also don't like push heavy besides LSA. We're not like doing billboards or TV or even mailers for drains, but we see that as like a big opportunity to grow that team and take it. We're at 5 drain cleaning techs now, and we could just add it to our membership, like 1 free drain cleaning a year, and we'd probably need to hire 3 techs for it.
Yep.
But right now
Or
we
like
run
a free-
5 purely off of just like demand calls.
It would be crazy to run something like 1 free camera a year, because in those cameras you're going to find that cast iron, you're going to find the completely
that's what
pipes.
people do. Yeah, people in our group chat are doing exactly that.
That's amazing. Yeah, I could definitely see that absolutely working. But yeah, today we had a kind of a internal discussion before the podcast. You're going through some large organizational chart changes. You want to talk about that a little bit? What's that stemming from, and what does it look like?
Yeah,
I know that's always a pertinent question.
Well, I never thought I would say this, but I actually started to like Facebook again. So we started a Facebook group a couple weeks ago, and it's been growing really fast. It's like 50 to 60 members a week right now, which has just been awesome. The engagement's been awesome. We're learning. People are sharing really valuable stuff. And honestly, it's just been a lot of fun to be able to engage so closely with people in my industry. It's something that I missed a lot. So if you're interested in talking to other folks from home service, primarily plumbing, HVAC, and electrical, check out our Facebook group. So it's Plumbing, HVAC, and Electrical Business Growth, hosted by Owned and Operated, and check the link below.
Yeah. So our org charts are kind of funny because like they adapt and grow a lot as a business grows and gets more complicated. And like examples would be service managers and install managers, and then you add in plumbing, and suddenly there's a plumbing manager or an electric manager, and you just keep sort of going. So where we've found ourselves is our organization is about 140 people, including like contractors, and we run a trade vertical stack. So what that means is like our departments are by trade. So all the way up to like senior leadership, they're by trade. And that's going to be like, there's a plumbing dispatcher, there's plumbing service manager, plumbing install manager, a plumbing operations manager. And like, we've really segmented it down to trade. And that's how we got here. And that's how most people get somewhere. Like very few people do what we're going to plan on moving to off of the rip. I don't know that I've ever heard of anyone doing it off the rip. Most people do exactly that. They have their HVAC team, their plumbing team, their electric team, their drains team. There's a manager under each one, and that's just how they fit. And that worked to get us up to where we are now. But the problem is now what we're finding is it takes like switching power. So the teams now are really big. And so we have 4 service managers, 3 install managers, 3 operational heads, 4 dispatchers, 3 or 4 install coordinators. And until now, they've all been segmented by trade. So like, I'm going to describe what that looks like really quick. And I think it's easy to see where we're going with this. But like the way one service manager call by call does something is totally different than how the other 3 call by calls do it. Because they are reported in different verticals. They have different, like they have direct to a different operations head, or they have different teams, or, so their SOPs are different and it's complicated. The way the install leaders do it is different. The dispatchers, the way they do it is a little bit different because, this is how electric does it, this is how HVAC does it. And what ends up happening is it's really hard to train and retain and move and promote people. And so that's one big one. Two, it's just complicated. I would say unnecessarily complicated. And something that we continue to learn is it's very easy to make something complicated, and it's much harder to make it simple. So we've definitely overcomplicated it. And the final one is whenever there's an issue, it goes vertical instead of horizontal, which is probably the most disruptive thing that we're trying to solve. But go ahead. What was your question?
Yeah. So just to reiterate, so the actual move itself is you're getting rid of the essentially departmental title to each position. So if you're a service manager, you're a service manager across multiple trades.
No. So we're not quite doing.
Okay.
We're not quite doing that. So what we're planning on doing is like so the way we think of our teams now is our teams are by trade, and instead of doing it by trade, we're going to do it by discipline. So like dispatch is where this started. So 3 months ago, we're going from 3 to 5 dispatchers right now. And that was kind of complicated, the way we were like thinking through that, because all of their direct reports are different. They each report to someone different. They each have different one-on-ones, different structure, different whatever. And and we're getting ready to scale that up because we need after-hours dispatch and we need weekends dispatch because the team that like we have $30,000 a day that sells after 4 p.m. when most of the dispatch team leaves. So we have to like augment that. So we're trying to work through like, okay, how's this look? And we start talking to more and more people, and we're like, I don't think this is just a dispatch problem. I think that dispatch is the first time we're like really taking a look at this. But like, I think, we had a plumbing install coordinator and an HVAC install coordinator. And that really doesn't make a lot of sense because it should just be one team. So that was where it started was, okay, instead of it by trade, we should be looking at this by discipline. So our dispatch should be its own team where they train and retain themselves, promote from within that team. And if someone's out sick, then they cover for themselves. Whereas previously, if a dispatcher was out sick, that would go vertical. So their service manager would cover or their trade manager would cover. So now another dispatch is going to cover, so it goes horizontal. It's just less disruptive to the organization. Install coordination was the next one. We're like, okay, that should be a discipline focus. Like, we all have to pull permits, we all have to do drawings, we all have to do all these things. Like, we should be able to just do those for all the trades. We're leaving the like frontline managers by trade. So plumbing service manager, HVAC service manager, install managers, like those are specialty still to us. But then what we're doing is instead of the service managers, they each report to a different ops leader. They're instead going to report to a senior service manager and then to a director of sales. So the director of sales is going to oversee sales and service because that's the same specialty in our mind. And then there will be a director of fulfillment that all the install managers report to. And that's the structure.
That's interesting. So have you seen this at a different company? Did you see this on a Peterman walkthrough or anything like that? Like, where did this idea come from?
Yeah. So we started barking down this tree 90 days ago when we started trying to figure out, the problem came up in a couple different ways. One, we talked about this on the podcast and like in the company, but like, remember that options problem from April and like how that was just a miss from top to bottom? Like when that happened, we started being like, okay, what is wrong with our structure that would even make this possible? And one of the things we found is that our trade managers are like incredibly talented people who are like, they're going to stay with us and like we're excited to keep working with them. It's just the position's changing a little bit, but we're like, man, they just have too much going on. We're like, 1 minute they have to focus on like running a good sales team. Then they have to focus on running a good service team. Then they have to focus on maximizing revenue through install. and it's just too much switching. Like that's too different. And it used to be like, oh, it's all plumbing back when we had 10 people, but now plumbing is like 40 people. Like, no, it's more than that.
Yeah.
So, so we started working on this back when that problem happened. And then the dispatch thing pushed us even further into it. So we sort of mocked up an org chart and we started just talking to other owners. And the funny, it was funny because everyone that we spoke with had gone through the same journey that we did.
Yeah.
So, we talked with Apex, which is a firm down in Columbus, and they had just done it 6 months prior, and they're only like a couple $1,000,000 bigger than us. We talked to Peterman, and Chad had just done this a few years prior. I'm trying to remember people were really like gracious with their time. We talked to Eco, and they had done it maybe 2 or 3 years ago. So everyone had sort of done it, and all for the same reasons. And then what really kickstarted it for us is we're starting to prep to go regional again, like multi-location.
Yeah.
And I realized that our current structure, if I was going to launch brand new, I would never replicate our current org chart. Like I just wouldn't do it. I would have a service leader and an install leader.
Yeah.
And that was sort of like the icing on the cake where it's like, okay, this is the right decision. But it's a big upheaval. I mean, it affects almost everyone on the org chart.
Definitely. It also does something really cool though that I don't think you mentioned is we talk about it a lot, like when you put somebody in his place and you separate CSR from dispatch, you're doing that because you want to have somebody be the best at a singular thing.
Yeah.
And for a dispatcher,
this is generalist to specialist, baby.
Generalist to specialist. And that thing is not necessarily trade specific. So even though they have a trade, right, there's no benefit for a dispatcher to be plumbing dispatch versus HVAC dispatch, other than kind of some very minor understanding of the techs, what they're good at. But a lot of that's now mitigated by the AI and scheduling pro and whatnot. So that's really neat because it actually allows your sales team to do service and sales. It allows your install team to be managed by people that are only worried about fulfillment and installation. And it really makes people do what they're best at. So that's great. I mean, I think that's going to be a huge win.
Yeah.
Sounds like a lot of work though.
It's a lot, and it was interesting. Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot of work, and it was interesting because like some of the positions that we're starting to add in like don't currently exist. So if we're not, we'll need an HVAC sales manager now because we didn't have one, but HVAC has 3 salespeople, and then we'll need a training and management development because that's previously been. A training and development manager, and that's previously been managed in the trade verticals. Then we have to add in the tops of these, which are really big hires for us. Like we're kind of intimidated by it. It's director level hires. Each one's going to oversee 4 or 5 managers. So the first one that we're working on is a director of sales, which that's not a position that even Brandon or myself feel like we could fill. Like we don't feel like we have that skill set in the company right now to run that type of, hey, who's ever run 5 sales leaders underneath them? Because that's what it is. It's 4 service managers, an HVAC sales manager, and the inside sales supervisor, and 45 sales reps. It's a big position. $26 million of output this year, 35 something next year. So, but we just don't have that in house. So
also extremely unique.
Yeah,
I think that you're going to have
positions.
trouble. The interesting part, which a lot of people I don't think, or maybe they do, but it was definitely eye opening for me is when you're looking for people to fill these positions. Like there's nobody who's done this before, really. Like you have a handful of companies that are bigger than you across the nation.
Yep.
And they like. These positions didn't exist 10 years ago. This is kind of a new movement and growth of the industry.
Yeah.
And So now we're looking at
it's a real pain point.
Mhm.
It's a real pain point for us because, and I've mentioned this before, even with like HVAC sales managers or service managers, like there there's no big dog. There's no
Yeah.
big dog. We're the big dog. So and for a position like this position does exist. It does not exist in Northeast Ohio. There might be two of this position in Ohio. So it is going to be it's going to be a real challenge to find someone, and that's why it's such a specialty skill set. But we know the right person inside the organization is going to help us move towards 100 million. But yeah, it's a new position where there's just not many of them out there.
Yeah. Even at the lower levels, you can still see the difficulty in finding general managers who have done stuff like
Yeah.
this, service managers. I mean, there's just
Yep.
not that many people versus an accountant. Like an accountant, you can go out and
Yeah.
a dime a dozen. How are you? How are
Mhm.
you kind of dealing with that? Are you guys planning on relocating someone into the area? Like, what's the strategy for
Yeah.
fulfilling these high level positions
Yeah.
that they're not there?
Yeah.
Car salesman?
So most of the only I mean, one, we are opening up the pool. Like there might be I don't know, under 50 of this position in the entire US of people that have sat in this position for plumbing, HVAC, electric. Like it's just not really a
Hmm.
thing. So we're going to open up the pool. We think that solar could be a good fit, and that likely has more candidates. We think that roofing could be a good fit. Um, so we're open to it's basically any in-home sales direct to homeowners and like close on the spots. That's sort of the pool that we're looking at. And it's definitely going to be a relocation because there just isn't one of these in Northeast Ohio. But it's a big opportunity for somebody. The
Oh
other
yeah.
positions we do feel like we could potentially fill in house. It's just this one is like, oh, we just don't have this. Like, we don't have this human being. So right now we're just like, how do we find them?
Very interesting. I'm excited for you and seeing how this goes because I know it's going to be a lot, but that sounds like a really great move. Yeah, I can't even wrap my head around 140 people. I think we just got to 22. We're at 22 individuals, so
Yeah,
we're finally staffed up.
yeah,
But luckily, you're going into this like
yeah,
in a labor market that's actually manageable. Versus like 2022, the labor market was just so rough, and now it's kind of softened just enough that you can find
yeah,
people. So
yeah. I mean, yeah, we haven't had. I don't know that we've had a huge issue finding people. Um, in a couple, I mean, maybe a little bit, but we've really been doing okay for like a year and a half.
well, congratulations.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's from the smaller operators I talk to. It's a big lift to try to get people even in the door. Like we've focused
we'll
on
see
apps.
what I suspect. I think it's a different problem. So we went to a Nexstar regional meeting last week,
Hmm.
and Brandon went. I didn't, but he said that the like it's July, and he said most of the people at the meeting were smaller operators, like sub 7-8 million, and they like a lot of them were having their guys work around the warehouse because they literally couldn't put anything on the schedule. So I suspect labor market softening is companies are shrinking. Like companies can't keep their guys busy. I saw a
Yeah.
sim for a company in my market the other day, and They were down maybe 4 or 5 points from 22 down again in 24, probably by like 10%. And it's the same thing. They're just, we talk about it a ton on this show, but like LSAs stopped working and people just figure out how to drive leads outside of LSAs.
Yeah.
So their guys just aren't working, so nobody's hiring. So I think it's less, it's not like there's suddenly a talent pool available. It's just that no one else is hiring.
That's interesting. Yeah, it's an interesting perspective. I've never chewed on it that way, but potentially, I mean, that would make sense because that's a very hard range of the market returning back to sub or pre-2022 levels, in addition to, hey, you guys have been living it on easy mode for the past 6 years with LSA, and now that turns off, and those two like things combined make it very difficult to hold people. So, well, that's neat, man. I think so. Yeah. I don't know if I don't want to beat the dead horse here because I know we're coming up on time, but I appreciate it. Did you have anything else today for our wonderful, beautiful, handsome listeners?
I don't think so. Make sure you check out the Facebook group. Make sure you check out ownedandoperated.com. And we do have our September workshop coming up. So if you're interested, check it out. It should be fun.
It's going to be great. I'm so excited for this next workshop. I hope to see y'all there. There's going to be so much value. I'm really excited. So thank you all. Have a good one. And listen to us next week.
Thanks for tuning in to Owned and Operated, the podcast for home service entrepreneurs. If you enjoyed today's episode, please hit the like button and subscribe to the podcast. If you have any questions or topics you'd like us to cover, feel free to reach out. You can find me on Twitter at @WilsonCompanies. I'll see you next time.